On this episode of Deep Thrones, we review House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 6, Smallfolk. We break down Aemond ruling in King's Landing. We discuss Rhaenyra and Myseria's new relationship, and we wish Sir Darkland well as he tries to claim a dragon, plus many more hilarious segments. Winter is here.
Not to be messed with, tested quiz. They shooting shots, hitting bricks.
Welcome to Deep Thrones, the most entertaining podcast in the world of Ice and Fire. I'm your host, Sims. My partner, Sheedy's here. What's up, Sheeds?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Deep Thrones. This is the most entertaining podcast in the world of Ice and Fire. I am, my name's John, and this is my partner, Chris. So...
You're crushing it today with the look.
Just so you know, I did that because in edit, it's good to have options. So you never know. Like if mine sounds really good, maybe we roll with that one.
That's interesting because you are like in sole control of the production of this show. So.
Yeah, so I'll let you know what I think. But yeah, I just figured last week's episode was pretty good. I was hoping this would be a good episode. I figured dressing up for it a little bit.
Okay.
This is nothing too fancy, just a little something. I bought this from a tailor who guaranteed that I would like the way I look, and I gotta say he was accurate because I do. I feel very confident in this. I feel great. The suit is riding up a touch.
It's a 3-piece suit with a bow tie.
It is a 3-piece suit with a bow tie.
And you also, what's down here? What do you
This is a little timepiece. It's a, what do they call these? Pocket watch?
Yes.
It's a pocket watch. It's not programmed or anything. But inside, I have a picture of Alicent Hightower. I don't, but it'd be cool if I did, and I will. My beloved.
You look like Thomas Shelby from Peaky Blinders.
I appreciate that. Is that a compliment? Is he good? Is he good?
Well, he's not a good guy, but he does dress well, though. So
gotcha. And that's important because but I'm dressing well because the Greens are full of good guys, and they have been much maligned on the internet. A lot of sauce thrown at Kristen Cole, at Alicent, about being a bad mother, about Aemond being like a brutal person, about Aegon, and I'm here to say that it's not really that accurate. And you'll see, I think, by the end of this season that the Greens are by far the better side.
Well, right now they're not looking like the better side, but before we dive into the review, we do have to discuss the results of A Song of Spice and Desire.
That's right. Chris came up with the idea that we do the poll for my dating show, and the fans voted for Myseria, and it came down to her and Simon Strong, which, if I had my way, I probably would have gone Simon on that one, because you know how I feel about that accent. But Myseria, out of nowhere at the end of that episode, I thought, you know what, she's not that bad.
Out of nowhere?
She's had a solid season, and I've been maybe too hard on her. Mm-hmm. And I think that we'll discuss it. We'll get to it. But Myseria won. But like any dating show, dating shows would be more interesting if the fans voted.
Honestly,
maybe we add that wrinkle in.
We should actually bring a Song of Spice and Desire to air. ABC, if you're listening, whatever other broadcasts there are out there, we'll do it.
NBC as well.
We'll write it.
And this is the cool thing is when we get really close to like the final vote for the like who's going to be my love. If I don't really like the options, I'll just kind of step aside and I'll let you take over for me. You can step in.
Because I'm the hand.
Yeah, you can take over.
The timing of Myseria being voted to be the winner of your dating show is very serendipitous.
I would definitely love the use of the word serendipitous, and I would agree. It was, especially me dressing like this was, this, like I said, was not even, it was just how I was dressing. Regardless, I was having a nice Sunday. But then that episode happened and Myseria won. And man, I feel like now I feel great about it. We talked about it because I'm not a huge fan of the accent because it just is weird. And now I'm like, I can make it work.
You can get behind that now?
I can get behind the accent. Got AirPods. Ever heard of them? Anyways, that was a solid episode. I thought we'll get into it. We'll start breaking it down. That was episode 6. And what was it called?
It was called Smallfolk.
Smallfolk.
Yes. So, yeah, we'll start off there. Jason Lannister, and we saw this in the previews on the last episode, but Jason Lannister is leading the Lannister host out of Casterly Rock. Apparently they have 5,000 knights and twice as many men-at-arms and bowmen with them. We see Lord Lefford for the first time, who's described in the books as kind of a elderly, sickly type man. Looked fine at the time that we saw him on screen. And that, of course, is the Golden Tooth, which is kind of the entryway from the Western Lands into the Riverlands. So the Lannister host isn't far away, but we find out that Jason Lannister is going to wait there for a bit.
He wants Aemon to join them. He's like, we are excited to march on Harrenhal as soon as Aemon and Vhagar join us. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's because they want the protection from Caraxes, because no matter how many men he has, I feel like Daemon on Caraxes could just strafe run them all day, right?
Oh, yeah. And they're not too far from Blackwood territory as well if they're at the Golden Tooth. So you could potentially have the Blackwood host and Daemon on Caraxes. That'd be some trouble for you.
Yeah, they'd not have a good time.
Not having a good time. Jason Lannister also had like real lions in cages.
Yeah, it's very much playing up to the, and it's like we talked about last week with other people about just the heritage of these houses, where it's like the Lannisters weren't all Tywin. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, he also had some ancestors that were probably Jags and,
His dad was like famously a Jag. He gave all the money of Casterly Lockwood.
That's right. That's one generation removed. So it's sort of, you get these silly guys who just don't know what they're doing with their money, and, this guy's buying lions. And he's also making demands of Aemon Targaryen, and as we see in the next scene, Aemon is none too happy and kind of tells Tywin, like, get your brother in line.
One thing, too, that before we move on, that I want to just focus on, because this is going to be, I think, a theme throughout the rest of this episode that we discuss. Anytime you have armies on the march, you're leaving somewhere else vulnerable.
Yeah.
So just keep that in the back of your mind as we're kind of talking through this episode. But I think that's going to be... We're going to start seeing some things by the end of the season, I think, there.
So, and then we get back to the Green Council. Aemond is pissed that Jason Lannister would dare send word to Tywin to join him on Vhagar. He's like, if I tell you to march to Harrenhal, you're going to fucking march to Harrenhal. Mm-hmm. And Alicent makes a suggestion, and Aemond just cuts her off. He's like, stop, don't talk.
Aemond is fully in control now at the Small Council. He even starts giving Tywin Lannister some sauce because his brother mouthed off and summoned Aemond.
I think everyone gets a little Aemon sauce.
Aemon has plenty of sauce.
He's got plenty of sauce. He's like a B-dubs menu. He's like, what flavor do you fucking want? Huh? You want it spicy? You want it mild? Pick your sauce. And he's giving Larys sauce. He's giving Alicent sauce. He's telling Larys he's just giving it to everybody. But you're right. He's basically saying, like, we are two big developments. Well, 3 big developments in that scene. 2 military developments, though.
Yeah, so one, of course, they're talking about the Lannisters that we just talked about, but then he mentions Dalton Greyjoy and trying to recruit them to break the blockade, maybe using Alicent's hand in marriage to kind of sweeten that pot. And then he also sends Criston Cole to Harrenhal.
Yep.
Again, kind of. I mean, Criston Cole never really made it the first time, but...
The concept, I think, is the Lannisters come from kind of like the southwest. Criston Cole comes from the east. Daemon's there with Caraxes, that's really all he's got, and then Aemon's like, once it's advantageous, I can show up. That's, I think, the concept there. Mm-hmm. And then this is when he suggests, let's get the Triarchy in the mix.
Yes, and this was interesting to me because in the books, Otto's the one that kind of plants the seeds with the Triarchy, and it happened before he got fired, so this had been in the makings for like months at minimum, maybe even like a year or so. And now they're just having it show up when Tywin's going to do it, so... It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but
I'm curious.
A little different from how it was in the book.
And then the scene ends with Aemond. Essentially, people will view this as Aemond firing Alicent, but I see it as he kind of gave her a promotion.
He's a promotion to more domestic pursuits?
That was not a good turn of phrase by him. I don't think he meant that. I think he meant, like, pickleball, that's fun. I think... What he was trying to, he was like, you're so good at your job, we're going to promote you to not doing it anymore and just going away. You know what I mean? It's like it's like a retirement, essentially, was what it was.
She gets a golden parachute?
Yeah, you get the opulence of living in King's Landing. You don't have to deal with all these idiots anymore at the Small Council. You get to relax. But it did come off as him just firing her.
Yes. And I actually, when you started that, I thought you were going to go a different direction with it. I thought you were going to say that she wasn't necessarily firing her, or he wasn't firing her. He was questioning why she was there in the first place. And I think when you think about like the seats at the small council, the Queen Dowager doesn't really have.
No.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I
and he
think
did question that.
He did.
And she always diverts back to the years where Viserys was very ill, and sort of says like, "I ruled in his stead." Aemon doesn't really care, and he says, "All right, you're done." You know,
you're gone.
And she sort of even takes a shot at him, like, you really took your bullying to heart, didn't you?"
And she like touches his face, and he like holds her hand there for a second. I couldn't tell if any of that was like genuine or if it was like okay, we're completely done now. But
he might have some mom issues.
He might.
He might. You never know. Corlys in the map room. He puts the pin on. He is now hand to the queen, but he doesn't really do much.
No, Rhaenyra kind of runs this scene, and of course, it picks up where they left off, where Jace and her were talking about the dragon seeds and how they can get more dragon riders. And she does a little bit of research, and turns out Steffan Darklyn is related by his like grandmother's mother. I don't even know what the relation was, but
wouldn't it be weird if you went to work and your boss was like, "Hey, I was Googling you. I found out some information about your lineage." I'd be like,
"I stole some of your DNA, sent it to 23andMe. Turns out."
Yeah, you're related to Jack the Ripper.
So she commissions him indirectly to go and try to ride Sea Smoke.
She gave. I think they gave him a choice. Maybe the choice was left on the cutting room floor, but she was like, "It'd be cool if you did this," and he's like, "I'll definitely do it."
Yeah, and some like Celtigar even kind of dissented with that opinion, but Steffan Darklyn was pumped to go do it.
Yeah, and so we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, well. And we go to Harrenhal, where tell me if you guys have heard this one before. Daemon is tweaking. He's tripping balls. I think the words of the season for Deep Thrones has been tweaking and tripping balls.
And off the perkies.
Yeah, anything that has to do with a person just absolutely off their ass. And that's what Daemon is right now. Again, and who does he see?
He sees Viserys in a little throwback.
Yeah, and he's doing the same thing he does in episode 1 of season 1, which is when he finds out that Daemon in the brothel said heir for a day, when he sort of disinherits him.
I will say, I feel like I am along the same sentiment as the majority of the fan base, in that I'm kind of fatigued of Daemon tripping balls. However, I do think it's cool to show, like, these moments still mean a ton to him.
Yes, and this one to me was the catalyst, like the I guess the finale. You know what I mean? That's because they got Paddy back as King Viserys, but I think it almost was like 2 episodes too long. I agree with the sentiment of the masses, which is like they really kind of, because realistically in Fire and Blood, Daemon at this specific juncture like probably isn't mentioned much. Like I'm talking about this. And I think they had to determine what to do with him. And I think they thought this was a really cool, artsy idea. But over the course of a season, it can be, like you said, fatiguing. Mm-hmm. And I think that at the end of the day, they just didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like, once I go back and I binge and rewatch the whole season, maybe I'll have a different opinion. But, yeah, I see what they're doing by, like, drawing out his motivations and what he cares about, what pivotal moments happened in his past. Yeah. But it is just dragging out too long.
Yeah, like next week who knows what he'll see. He's gonna be on the stepstones and he's gonna be sharing a drink with the crab feeder and be like, "Sorry, I cut you in half," you know? Anyways,
you never know what's gonna
come through that door. And it's Trippin' Daemon, and he comes through the door and there's Simon Strong, and he's like, "Dude, Jesus, what is your deal, dude?"
And he blames Simon Strong for him tripping balls. He holds a knife to Simon. How dare he do, like, listen, I'm Team Blacks. Daemon is on our side maybe right now, but like, don't attack poor young Lord Simon Strong.
Yeah, he almost was my love. I mean, and he was second place technically. And Daemon believes he's like, someone's poisoning me. Mm-hmm. And Simon has to be like, dude, ever since you showed up, everything has just been up, just insane. Like, can you relax?
His Simon's boys sitting at the table are about to like go fight Daemon. That probably wouldn't have ended well anyways.
No, and then he goes outside in a huff, and Alice is there, and they just discuss essentially the power of the crown and wanting versus not wanting and all that good stuff. Which if you watch Game of Thrones, Jon Snow was a big proponent of not wanting.
Not wanting.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. In that conversation that Alice and Damon had, what were the vibes that you got from Alice in terms of like, does she support him or does she not?
I can't tell. I feel like she does. I think she is like trying to gaslight him through wizardry into like supporting Rhaenyra. I feel like she's like a pro Rhaenyra person, having never met Rhaenyra, and yet is trying to get him to just understand that like you are a piece of the puzzle, but you're not the player. She said that to him.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
So I see that and I like that angle. From this conversation, I thought that like she was pro Smallfolk and like old gods in the Riverlands and stuff, and did not want Daemon or any of them there.
I agree. Yeah.
But then later in the episode, we find out that she like helped him. So I guess I was kind of confused there. But it could be your angle though. That would make sense then.
Yeah.
In that scene,
I just can't make heads or tails of what her motivation is, which, you know.
And one important line she says, you know, Damon basically directly asks, what should I do, or what's your counsel? And she says, do nothing now. In a few days, winds will shift.
Yeah. Which, do nothing has been the theme of this fucking season.
Yeah, that's true. That's like the third time.
Alicent said to Aegon, do nothing. Rhaenyra has done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's finally starting to do things, but we'll see how much sense it makes. So Sir Darkland goes to claim Sea Smoke. They're singing. The Dragon Tamers are singing to Sea Smoke and High Valyrian. Sea Smoke seems to be vibing with it. There's a lot of cuts to Rhaenyra. She's looking gorgeous as ever. And Darkland like steps up. Sea Smoke sort of like turns his head like, go ahead, get on, go for a little ride.
They keep the Dragon Tamers are saying Dohaeris, Serve, and High Valyrian, and they mention to Stefan Darkland, don't show fear. Sea Smoke turns, like you said, Sheedy, to kind of offer the, I don't know, what do you call that you ride on horses
saddle.
And stuff,
Yeah.
saddle. And Stefan Darkland steps forward, but it did look like he was super scared stepping forward.
And they said, don't be scared.
And then finally he goes, I've done it. Like before he's done anything, for the record, he didn't even touch the dragon when he said I've
Literally, it's you're at the 5 and you stick your arms out and you drop the football. You don't cross the goal line. And Sea Smoke turns his head and he's like, not so fast. And then torches him. And then the poor Dragon Tamer is also caught in the crossfire, but he like slits his throat. Mm-hmm. And Sir Darkland is like just writhing in pain. And they all just like walk away shocked. And it's like, put him out of his misery, Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra has gotten a fair amount of her side murdered this season. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, but like, what is that? What are you doing there?
I'm just asking you what you make of it.
You making pokes at Rhaenyra?
I'm not poking at Rhaenyra. I'm simply asking, when does she needs a dub?
I mean, technically, Rhaenyra wouldn't be in this situation if it weren't for the Greens and their doing, so.
Whatever. Just, my point is that it's war now, you know what I mean? And it's like, she's getting hurt. She got Darkland killed, like you said, with those castles. She didn't prepare them at all. You know, she's just leaving people out to dry. And it's like, listen, you know, I agree with her, though. She needs to be the one to lead people into battle at this point. Because it's just not cutting it elsewhere.
I mean, we'll see. She's got some things cooking. Her and Mysaria are cooking some things up.
We get a lot of character development in these next two scenes.
We do.
Her, you know, yeah. We'll talk more about the cooking in a bit. But we get Corlys meeting with Alan and Adam.
Yeah, so Corlys actually offers command of one of his ships to Alan of Hull, which at this point it's very well established to us as the viewers that Alan is a bastard son of Corlys. And we even see later on in the scene that Alan prefers to shave his head so that he doesn't show the white hair of the Valyrians.
He inherited the white hair. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, of course, keeping with the theme of I don't want it, like Alan does not want to do it. He wants nothing to do with Corlys. He feels shafted by Corlys throughout his life, and the fact that Corlys is offering him all these things now, I think Alan is a little jaded because it's like, why didn't you do that from day one?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Then we bounce over to King's Landing. We're in a tavern. Ulf White all my homies hate Off-White, is there. Diana.
Yes, Diana, who was the
Victim
maid
of King Aegon.
Of King Aegon, yeah. Who now works in this tavern, and also Aemon's mommy is there.
Aemon's mommy, who I found out through the subtitles, her name's Madame Sylvie.
Yeah, she's the woman who was Kristen Cole's real life acting coach.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
she was in
cool.
season 1 too.
That's awesome. But they're discussing essentially like stirring the pot, like, oh, they're having these lavish feasts at the Red Keep, and they don't care anything about the Smallfolk. They're keeping all the good food. People are getting fired up in the tavern.
They're eating lamb, and all these people are eating like fish water, and it's just propaganda. And then we hear news that Sea Smoke has fled Dragonstone, and that's obviously not good for Rhaenyra. She just lost one of her dragons, and apparently just torched that dude. Was like, that's it, I'm out.
Imagine losing a Queensguard and a dragon in one spot.
I don't need to imagine. Your queen did that. Like, that's literally what just happened to her. And then Celtigar, Barnabas Celtigar, is giving Rhaenyra all sorts of smoke about Sea Smoke and about just sort of the situation of the war, and she just turns around and slaps him right across the
chest. Gives him a good slappity slap.
Rhaenyra had a good episode. She had a good episode. Except
for getting her boy killed, but...
Oh, yeah. I mean, not strategically or tactfully or in any way for her cause, but she had a good episode.
But yeah, she basically is saying, in this move... This is like getting out of hand. Like, you guys can't just be talking to me however you want.
Yeah.
You should fear me. I'm your queen. And I think we're starting to see, like,
she's my queen.
Later on, she draws a sword, like, just kind of practicing with it. Like, I think we're starting to see more of Rhaenyra maybe going to a dark side a little bit.
Ooh, which I would love that. It's, like, long overdue. Like, long overdue. We needed this dark side. Like... I won't even go down that road. We'll get to it. But Mysaria tells Rhaenyra to try more dragon seeds. But they also discuss that there's no food in King's Landing.
Yes. They're talking about... basically, Mysaria mentions, okay, we've kind of planted the tinder, right? But tonight we'll light the kindling.
Yeah.
And we find out what that is later on with the gifts that they send.
Oh, yeah. Things get real hot real fast. And Hugh's wife is livid because there's no food in King's Landing. Again, keep an eye on the Smallfolk. Larys and Aemond discuss the angry Smallfolk. Larys also is like, you could use a hand of the king. And he kind of like puts himself forward, and Aemond's like, I wasn't going to name you. You're going to help me find him, you idiot.
This is where I like Aemond, and this is where he differs from his brother. Remember, earlier in the season... Larys approaches Aegon and so easily weaves his way... manipulates Aegon, so much so that he fires Otto. Aemond, on the other hand, completely saw that situation, I think, even when that was unfolding. And then now, when we see in this episode, he doesn't fall into Larys' trap. As a matter of fact, he says, like, we're going to undo what you did with Aegon and hire Otto again.
Yep.
So I do think, like, we're seeing the contrast in wisdom between... Aemond and Aegon, even though Aemond is a lot more cutthroat and vicious than Aegon is.
I think they're both extremes, and there's probably a middle ground because he doesn't use Aemond's not using them as advisors. He's using them as errand boys, essentially. Like, you're going to go send this raven, you're going to go send that raven. They're like, what if we did this? And he's like, what if you shut the fuck up? You know what I mean? And then Orwell also says that Aegon may live, and Aemond's like, maybe I'll go talk to him.
Yeah, the conversation's not good. Aemond walks in, essentially asks, "What do you remember?" to Aegon about Rick's rest, of course.
Yeah, and Aegon's like, nothing.
Aegon's like, I don't remember shit. Aemond, I don't think, believes him, so he presses the marble like check-in balls at the small council and like presses it into Aegon's torso. That's of course like torched and burned and everything.
But did you get a weird vibe that he like left it with him?
Was that
like an olive branch almost? Like it's there when you're like it's yours when you're back kind of thing? But everything else leading up to that is such a weird thing to do to then be like, by the way, bud, like I totally know you're the king.
Yeah. I don't know why he left the marble ball with him.
Forgetfulness.
I do. I will say I don't know that. I don't think that it's an olive branch because I think Aegon, every day that Aegon's in that bed, I think his chances of being killed by Aemond is increasing. And this, again, this isn't like any... We don't do spoilers here. But just in general, Aemon's number one goal is to be the king. Always has been since he
Yeah.
rode Vagar.
You will, if you watch this on YouTube, you will be spoiled by looking at this beautiful suit. But that's the only spoiling we have on the Deep Thrones podcast. We will not divulge any information. We then go to the Vale. Rhaena and Joffrey are having a chat about who cares. And then Jane comes up and tells Rhaena that they are going to be going to Pentos. Prince Reggio accepted their offer.
Yeah, and also in this scene, they saw a bunch of burnt up sheep carcasses in the Vale.
There's a big dragon in the Vale eating all the sheep.
There's a big dragon lurking. And Rhaena kind of learned not to trust Jane Eyre after she found out that she lied to her.
She's squirrely, Jane Eyre. She's got a big neck.
She does. She has a long neck.
She's got a long neck. She's like a giraffe. Well, whatever.
I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Hey, I'm not. Who am I to judge? Jace treats with Rhaenyra, and they discuss her standing with the council. And Jace essentially says that they need Daemon. And then, that's essentially the theme of all their conversations. Then Mysaria walks up and is like, a gift has been sent.
The gift has been sent. And that's it. I will actually add a little bit more color, rewind a second. So, Prince Reggio is one of the princes in Pentos. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the connection to Daenerys and Varys and all them later on in Game of Thrones.
Prince Reggio sounds like a sauce boy. He's like, Prince Reggio in Pentos, he's going to love his sauce. He's very particular about his sauce.
Dude, you don't mess around with Prince Reggio.
Mm-mm.
What murder?
What murder? He's the best guy around. Rhaenyra and her sigil are on boats. She has essentially sent feed to King's Landing. She sent a lot of fresh produce, which last week they made it a point to show everything was moldy. And Rhaenyra's looked like they were just like the greenest apples, the reddest apples, depending on your style of apple.
And you mentioned either last episode or the episode before that you thought it might be a good strategy for Rhaenyra to appeal to the small folk in that way.
Rhaenyra, I'm Team Greens, but she's obviously listening to the pod. She's taking my advice. It's like, dude, Aemon should have listened to me. I should be on her small council, and now is as good a time as any to be on the council, because you
got Mysaria and Rhaenyra listening to our pod.
Yeah, I hope so. But no, I thought it was a good strategy. We even discussed it back in the OG days of Game of Thrones, that it's just like, if in a perfect world, if Daenerys is taking King's Landing without like the threat in the north, and now Rhaenyra is doing it as well, or attempting to, what you want to do is you want the small folk on your side. They're starving. You be the source of their food. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
That makes you the hero in their eyes.
Exactly. Alicent and Orwyle discuss Aegon, and it turns to Ravens to Otto, and how Otto has not responded with any Ravens, setting up like a mysterious, like, what's Otto up to situation, and we find out that the Beesberries have rebelled.
Yes. So remember episodes ago when Otto was still in the picture, and he mentioned that his brother Ormond was marching from Hightower and expected to meet little resistance until he got to the Riverlands. Well, turns out that resistance has shown up. The Beesberries are rebelling against the Hightowers, and apparently confronting their armies as they're marching east. Remember, Lord Beesbury was on the small council of Viserys. Once Viserys died, Kristen Cole and the cronies at the small council were trying to promote Aegon as king. Beesbury said no. Viserys said Rhaenyra was the king. That's who we all swore an oath to.
Yeah, and the queen.
Yeah, sorry. Yes. Rhaenyra was the queen. That's who we all swore an oath to. And then Kristen Cole accidentally killed him at the table.
It was one of the great deaths in Game of Thrones history. Was when that dude just crumbled and hit his face off the table and his head exploded. Alicent tells Aegon at the end of that scene that she's sorry. Aegon, I don't think hears it. He's all doped up. But then Gwaine and Alicent meet.
Gwaine and Alicent have a great conversation, actually. Alicent keeps what was that?
Oh, no, because they discuss the Greens are up because of Dare. They talk about Dare on the Daring.
Yeah. Alicent's still trying to figure out what's going on with Otto. Gwaine's like, chill out. When there's news to send, he'll send it.
Yeah.
And then they do mention Darren, and Darren has a dragon now. He's loyal. He's smart.
He's killing it with the ladies. He's kind. But also kind of a burn on Alicent because he's like maybe not being raised in the Red Keep, and she's like, well, maybe it was the mother. She self-burned.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is good. All is forgiven.
Yeah, but I think her self-awareness in this instance is kind of forced because she's being pushed out. If she was still in the mix, she would not be apologizing to Aegon. She would not be blaming herself for how Aemon grew up. Let's be real here. She's the number one seeker of, well, number two seeker of power in this whole story, I think.
Yeah, and number one is what? Rhaenyra?
Damon's up there right now.
Damon in the show.
But I think
heavy up
Aemon's
there.
number one right now.
Gotcha. And Rhaenyra, yeah, you're right. Rhaenyra's not really seeking power at all.
No.
She's just sort of, she's like just walking around Dragonstone like, what? Let's try this. Alicent visits with Helena, and she's like, let's go light some candles. She loves lighting those goddamn candles. Hugh sees there's no food, and he's pissed. Tensions are on the rise, but then people start running from the bay with bags of fresh produce.
Yeah, the gifts arrived. People are already getting fired up about it. Helena in that scene with Alicent mentions with the birds, I think, or they were crickets.
Yeah,
and she mentions that one of them stopped singing. That's kind of strange.
Yeah,
and everything she says means something. So I don't know what that's going to mean.
I got to look into that because I'm not sure at all. I can't connect it to anything. And all these people are running around with this fresh produce, like it's like they're a bunch of hipsters at Trader Joe's. And Rhaenyra's food essentially is a hit, and Hugh punches a guy out, and he gets his bag of goodies because Hugh is desperate. Like his kid is dying, they're sick, and they need food.
Yeah, and while all this is happening, Helena and Alicent are at the Sept. They're praying, and then all of a sudden the Kingsguard bust in, like, "Yo, we need to go now. These people are starting to riot a little bit."
Yeah,
they're on the way out, and a very Joffrey-like scene happens.
Yeah, one Kingsguard gets a little too overambitious with a sword, cuts a dude's hand off, and then everybody just goes crazy. They start kind of grabbing at the queens, because it's Alicent, Queen Dowager, and Helena, who is Aegon's wife, obviously, and they usher them into their carriage and they get them out of there. But it's they murdered a lot of small folk.
Oh yeah, and it looked like at least one of the Kingsguard was confirmed dead in that scene. Maybe even more.
Oh, yeah. And then from there, Larys meets with Aegon and denies him his sauce. He's like, no, I want him to keep a clear head. And actually, like a really good scene from Larys with some emotion about being someone with a kind of like a disability, you know?
Yeah, and being someone that your father hated from birth, kind of. This was very reminiscent to me of Tyrion. Because he's talking about your mind's the only thing that you have now, which Tyrion very much bought into that.
Yeah.
And then B, obviously your father hating you because you're disabled. But yeah, I think, Larys could be realizing that Aegon is his ticket.
Yeah, he's not making any hay with Aemon.
Right. But I do think, like, he's planting the seeds for Aegon to be like, there is a path for me to still retain power.
Oh, for sure. And he even says, like, you'll never run again. And Aegon, of course, is fretting because he's realizing he's going to have this disability the rest of his life. But Larys is like, no. They'll underestimate you, and you can outthink them. He's like, that's why easy with the milk of the poppy. They want you to have a clouded head. And, like, I get what Larys is saying, and Larys has lived from birth with the ailment, so it's probably easier for him to almost accept it, whereas Aegon has had something taken away. And he also, Aegon says, help me, because Larys just flat out tells him, like, your life is in danger when you live, but I can help you live. Love Larys.
And that's where that scene ends, but it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I don't like seeing all these infighting in Team Greens. We were doing great just a few episodes ago. Except for, of course, Jaehaerys, R.I.P. Always back to him. We feel bad about that.
2 days mourning, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, for him, two tops. Daemon sees Viserys again crying with Aemma Aaron's body. He also, he feels bad about some stuff. Again, he didn't really know what to do with Daemon. And then he wakes up and there's Simon Strong, of course, again, just like, dude.
We need a Simon Strong alarm clock.
I need a split screen when Daemon is having these tweaks of, like, what he's, like, watching him.
Like, yeah. Because he never comments on it.
No.
But
wait till he comes to, and
he brings news that Lord Grover Tully, the Lord Paramount of the Riverlands, has passed finally.
Yeah.
Remember, he's been ill this whole time. His young great-grandson, Oscar Tully, is now the Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. And again, remember, flashback, Oscar Tully met with Daemon at Harrenhal when Daemon was trying to rally the Riverlords. So they do have some history there. Oscar Tully's very aware of their scenario. And when we looked at the look ahead, it seems like Damon and Oscar are treating again.
Yeah, Oscar might be giving him some sauce, too, for how he's handled his time in the Riverlands. But he even asked, he's like, how did he go? Thinking that his advice to Oscar is what killed him. And he's like, no, he just, old age, like, even our own Alice tried to give him, some assistance. Which then it's like, I guess Alice sped along his death.
Right.
So she is trying to help Damon.
Right.
And she's not a ghost because he mentioned her.
Right. Yeah, ghost theory's off the table.
Ghost theory's off the table. Owl theory, on. Owl theory.
Owl theory lives on.
Guest of the pod, Ham, said she thinks she's a barn owl.
Yeah.
And Google, for those of you who don't know, Google owl theory. You will not be disappointed. So yeah, Alice, I guess, potentially killed Grover.
Which, again, adding to the kind of
The intrigue.
aura of her character.
Yeah.
But we'll see where that goes. That to me is one of the more interesting twists that they've put on in the difference between the show and the books. Like having Grover totally be kind of sped along by Alice Rivers. Because then to me it's like she's playing a much larger role in the grand scheme of the war now.
I've liked her character. I haven't necessarily liked all of what Damon has been doing, but I've liked her character.
Yeah, agreed.
Then we have a scene where Sea Smoke essentially is
hold on. We can't leave this out. Okay. Damon randomly starts fucking crying.
Oh yeah, he has
Remember
like a...
that?
You know what though? He probably is overwhelmed. Every time he goes to sleep, he has like a photorealistic hallucination. Yes, dude. That one got lost. He has a hallucination. I just did. And he's like seeing his dead brother. He's seeing the version of his wife that I guess he preferred. It's just like, I think he's overwhelmed.
I mean, if you're not crying after you had a dream about smanging your mom, why are you crying now that like you got some pretty good news?
You think he smanged Viserys and they just didn't show it?
Viserys smanged him.
Yeah. Oh god. Sea Smoke is dive bombing Adam of Hull, and
yeah.
I hate that my mind went here, but I have a question. You know how, like, when a bunch of seagulls fly overhead, you're like, I hope one doesn't shit on me. Do you think would a dragon shit kill somebody? It's probably massive, right?
I think it depends on the size. Like, a Vagar shit would probably kill someone.
Imagine your whole keep. Like a tower. Like, you're just like, hey, your dragon shit on my keep, and it knocked down a tower. Guys, this is why we're the #1 podcast in the world of Ice and Fire.
I mean, it's probably smoking hot, too, you gotta think. Like,
right?
Yeah.
We need to get George... I'm not even kidding. This is a genuine question I have. We've never seen this before. Do they... Well, of course they have to go to the bathroom, I assume.
Yeah.
Lizards poo, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, everything has excrement.
Excrement. That's the word we should have been using.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll look into that, guys. Maybe we'll have some more on Deeper Thrones.
Yeah,
look into that.
Tune into Deeper Thrones Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I'll be on Wiki of Ice and Fire all week, like, dragon shit? But yeah, so it's kind of like dive bombing, what's it called, Spice Town, that area.
Yeah, yep.
And it kind of comes face to face with him, and he's not looking too excited about it.
Yeah, so Adam of Hull, of course, is Alan of Hull's brother, also a bastard son to Corlys Velaryon.
Mm-hmm.
Sea Smoke just seeks him out, I'm assuming because of the relation to Laenor. But yeah, Sea Smoke seeks him out, and it seems like they're like homies now, so...
Yeah, totally agree.
And then we're at Dragonstone again, and this is...
Let's just get into it. My Syria won the poll today. Again, I had no say in that. And her and Rhaenyra are discussing strategy. They're discussing the food. They're saying it's a hit. And, Rhaenyra is nervous that she cannot win the war. My Syria tells Rhaenyra a very personal story about her life, about her father's terrible abuse of her, mm-hmm. and all of the wounds she suffered because of it, internal and external. And but then she tells Rhaenyra, like, you would be a good queen kind of thing, like, you're stalwart, you would be a good leader, I believe in you. And they have an embrace, and it's a long hug. And, like, listen, I love a good hug too. I'll hug people for a long time, but they're doing that thing where in movies a lot, and I've never experienced this in real life. I don't know if this is as common as it is in movies, but they hug for a really long time and then their heads slowly like turn, I dive right in. I'm like, Yeah. But yeah, so their heads turn and then Rhaenyra and Mysaria start, making out, really.
Yeah. No, it's a pretty good breakdown of what happened.
I watched it closely.
They get a good neck sniffing in, and then a little, but the important dialogue there.
All right. Dialogue is as important anymore.
Rhaenyra is fully questioning again her, validity throughout this entire war. If she can do it without Daemon, she's pissed that her son mentioned that they need Daemon. So she feels a little bit betrayed by Jace in that regard. And I think an important thing that Mysaria mentioned is that Rhaenyra sees her as an equal, even though she really didn't have any, I guess, reason to.
Yeah.
So, and then, they made out.
Share a little smooch. And what a day to wear this suit. I'm going to have to get it dry cleaned. But... So anyways, Sir Lawrence barges in mid-makeout sesh, but he doesn't see him, like they break it off in time. And honestly, I hope Sir Lawrence dies a slow, painful death. I hope he gets torched by... I hope Aemon gets his hands on that gentleman for what he has done.
What he took from you?
What he took from me. What he took from all of us. What do you mean me? It's like I'm the only person in the world who was rooting for an extended scene.
Rooting for a Tootin'. This does confirm the rumors and allegations of Alicent and Rhaenyra when they were younger last season.
Oh yeah, they're definitely. I mean, 100%. I don't think that they ever jumped into it.
No, but they had a chemistry.
There was a chemistry, and I think that they would have gladly, but they were like, it's like one of those things where you're waiting for that first person to take the step. But neither one takes the step. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they both lived a very public life, too, so that could have played a factor into it.
I mean, look at what poor Laenor had to deal with, in his lifestyle. But Rhaenyra now is queen. Like, I wonder how long that thread is going to be pulled between her and Mysaria. Like, how long they go down the lines with this. If it becomes like the Kristen Allison thing, where she is now her most trusted advisor and also her paramour, so to speak.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see how that plays out. That was not in the source material, but that wouldn't have really been seen by anyone.
No, there'd be no one who would have any intel into that, right?
But I mean, again, I could see Mushroom writing something like that, but I don't know. But anyways, Laurent brings news that Sea Smoke has been seen flying over Spicetown, and he potentially has a rider on him.
Yeah, he's like, Sea Smoke has been seen flying, and Rhaenyra's like, who cares? And he's like, with a rider. And she's like, what?
Yeah.
Rhaenyra's pissed. She immediately, and it's like, also, like, she's all juiced up, probably. So she darts out of there. She hops onto Cyrax. She's like, I'm getting out of here. I got to go find out what's up with this guy who stole my, someone stole her dragon, essentially. So she takes off, and they think it's the Greens. So Jace comes running, and Jace has had a good season. He's pissed. He's like, no one's listening to me, and I'm doing some pretty good advice here.
Yeah. Well, and she doesn't even tell him where she's going.
No.
If I'm Jace, I would probably get on Vermax and follow her.
I would too, but I doubt he does.
No, yeah, probably not.
He's probably like, I'm here to the throne. I better stay here just in case. He's like, I better, hold up shop. He's like, my Syria to my quarters.
But it could be another trap laid by the Greens, right? Like, Vhagar could be waiting. Like, they don't know that. You know what I mean?
They don't. I'm curious to see how they play it next week. We did see on the look ahead that she does get in a bit of a shouting match with Adam. Yeah. And Adam's kind of standing there, and I wonder what his angle is. Is his angle like, we'll see what people give me, but also his dad is hand to the queen,
right?
So he probably will be compelled.
Yeah.
Do all your homies hate Adam?
He's like, dude, this dragon walked up on me, and I was like, oh.
The dragon chose him.
Yeah.
So we got new dragon riders, Adam of Hall and Mysaria. So pretty exciting.
Pretty exciting stuff.
She's riding a queen dragon. If you know what I mean.
What would you rate this episode?
I give it a 6.9.
Okay.
It was a bridge episode. It just doesn't get to 7. So.
How dare you look at me with a straight face and tell me you gave it a
6.9? First of all, does this suit look like a man who takes anything lightly? I literally called the Fed and I was like, what would you rate this episode? 6.9. I think it's not quite a 7. It's a bridge episode, and I can see in my mentions. I've been picking up my phone because, like I said, I'm kind of like Adam Schefter of the podcast. I gotta be
you gotta have that phone ready to go.
And some people think it was, it's just a little plotting.
Yeah, listen.
I agree with it. We agree.
We talked about this before we started recording. As long as the plot's moving forward in ways that make sense, like you need to have episodes like this.
Everybody has different opinions, though. I think that the thing you could argue is like in an 8-episode season, too many bridges is like, well, you could do 10 then. You know what I mean? And maybe pace it better. But at the same time, I agree. Whereas like I liked it, but I just love the world to begin with. So it's tough, when you see people who don't like it, to be too impartial when you're trying to agree with them. Because I do agree. But at the same time, like, I know nothing about Duncan Egg, and I can't wait.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Well, first off, I gave it a 6. Again, slower episode, lots of dialogue. I'll go back and rewatch, be able to really, like, lock into what's being said on screen without taking notes at the same time. But, yeah, I think the plot moved forward. The only thing that I don't love is just how long the Harrenhal's situation's dragging out, but I mean, according to canon, Damon was there for that long while all this stuff was happening too. So, like, I guess to your point, you just have to find like what to do with him. Throughout all this. So
the thing too is like, if this is a 4-season show, which indications are it will be, maybe 4 to 5, most likely 4, and they might even bump back up to 10 episodes next season because they just wanted to pace things a certain way. This was by choice by Condal, and you can almost see why. Because if it was 10 and they don't know what to do with Damon, that's probably why they made that choice. And they pushed, like next season, he said, it's like a few massive battles. Like, next season might be a real, like, punch to the senses compared to this one. So my advice would be just hang with it. And most people who have already come this far are in love with the characters, they'll do it anyway. But I totally agree. I think all that sentiment is of value and or valid, I should say, because it's, it's tough to pace these shows, but they rewarded handsomely to do it.
I mean, in the books, like some stories are longer than others. Like some chapters are longer than others. Some are more interesting to read than others. Like it's just when you're reading, you're just generally a more patient person.
The books are just like the show, though. Especially the Song of Ice and Fire books, where you get to a Tyrion section, and you're like, "Fuck yes."
Yeah.
And then you get to a Bran section, you're like, "Oh my god, no."
Yes, for sure.
George, why? Why have you done this to me?
There's definitely some chapters you fall asleep to more than
for sure. For sure. Best line, Yas Queen. Chris, would you like to start?
I'll lead us off. My best line of the episode was when Alicent and Gawain were chatting it up, and Alicent goes, "Was it the court or was it their mother?" And she was referring to ruining the kids and making the kids in King's Landing. Obviously, Darren's a good kid, but
but also Viserys, he should take some blame for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, he's dead.
I know. You could blame the dead for things. I do it all the time. Yes, Queen?
My Yas Queen was when Larys was speaking with Aegon, and we just talked about it, but he said, they will underestimate you, and this will be your advantage.
Oh, I love that. Was a great line. And I did... Larys is a creep and a weird character, but I did like that scene. I loved seeing the emotion from him and just seeing like a very human moment. And you empathize with someone that's really bad, and when they can make you do that, that is good. It's like a powerful scene in a bridge up. But like you said, it's character development that we want. My best line from Rhaenyra: "It is my fault that you have forgotten to fear me," when she slapped Barty Kelts.
Bart Kelt.
And then my Yas Queen is Aemond to Alicent, but instead of a Yas Queen, it's more of a Queen.
Okay.
And I'm sure you'll be pleased to return to more domestic pursuits. Listen, I'm Team Greens, a little sexist. And by a little sexist, I mean very sexist. Aemond, you gotta clean that up, buddy. You can't be saying that.
Is that something the Green side is usually conscious of?
Oh, for sure. Alicent, again, the reason they're even called the Greens is because of her. She is our queen mother. She's our ace. She is the light that guides us. Just right now, we're going to listen to Aemond for a little bit.
Yeah, she's not any of those things.
She's just right now. She's going to pursue more. Like I said, she can have some. She can. Oh, dude, it's like she's earned her retirement. All right. He just didn't do it in a very graceful way. Usually, you throw him a party, you give him a lot of gifts. He did it kind of like, old Yeller a little bit.
He did say the crown was grateful for her service, so that was nice.
What more do you need? It's like getting the Medal of Honor almost. Hottest moment, Chris. What's yours?
We know what yours is.
No.
My hottest moment was the one from your best line. But
Rhaenyra
slapping Bartimaeus Celtigar. That was a very hot moment. Finally seeing Rhaenyra taking some action. It's good.
Yeah, she's doing a lot of things this episode.
What was your hottest moment?
Mine was the return of King Viserys. Well, all right. I'll be honest. I had it and then I crossed it out. It was the Rhaenyra my serious scene because it's good, I will say. And I'm like, again, it's your team, but it's good to see her getting hers, you know?
Yeah, that's...
Sure, her children's lives are in danger, and Rhaenys' body is still probably being picked from the ground, but it's time to get a little bit of action. You know?
Hey, you can't hate it. You can't hate it. You know?
If you do, I can't do anything for you, you know? Mount Rushmore, and I forgot what we were doing.
Yes, so this Mount Rushmore is the Mount Rushmore of the most cunning characters between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones.
All of Westeros.
All of Westeros. You could actually lead us off.
Oh, wow. My first round pick will be Tywin Lannister.
That's a great...
This is over. It's done.
That's
it's
an
done.
all-time first round
I've won
pick.
the draft.
Okay.
Just by proxy of getting the first pick.
Okay. My first pick for most cunning character would be Otto Hightower.
That's a good one.
Very similar, but I will give the edge to Tywin there.
Oh, yeah. I'm about to smoke you with this one, too. My second pick will be Peter Baelish.
Okay. It's interesting because, you can't see from this angle, but he's staring directly at my laptop.
I can't see from any angle.
The guy's in my playbook right now.
Dude, I wish you could see my sight looking at that. That is hieroglyphics to me. People say that I look at the camera and I squint really hard because I'm making sure that everything... I'm doing, my tech checks, you know?
Okay.
And it's I can't see. I cannot see. I'm like Jinkies. I can't see with my fucking glasses.
I can't see. My dad said Joe. I can't see. All right. My second pick is going to be Tyrion Lannister.
Oh, shit. Yeah, Tyrion. That's a good one.
Very, very cunning.
God, that's a good one. My third pick will be... Ooh, their names rhyme, so I'm stuck between these two. And I have two from Game of Thrones, so I'll go House of the Dragon. I'll go with Larys.
Larys Strong.
He's cunning.
Good pick. Well, I'll go with the rhyming partner there, Varys.
That's a good one.
From, Game of Thrones.
It would have been great if you said someone with a name that just completely didn't rhyme. My fourth pick, and this person wasn't on my big board, but they sort of convinced me that they're very cunning, and it's my Mysaria the White Worm.
Yeah.
The play with the food was very smart.
Yes.
And you thought I was going to say something stupid and silly, but I didn't. I was dead serious. It was about the food. So Mysaria.
Who's you that you're pointing at in the
I don't know, the listeners. This is bad radio because people listening to this have no clue what I'm doing.
Yeah, this is a perfect time to plug our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube. You get to see Sheedy in all his glory in his suit.
Please, yes.
Rounding us out, fourth and final pick here, Olenna.
Oh,
Tyrell.
That's a great one. I love Olenna. She's the OG. If you guys
she wants Cersei to know that she did it.
Watch Game of Thrones. She wants Cersei to know. If you haven't watched Game of Thrones yet, you'll see what that means. Let's go to You Blew It. I'll go first, just because it's a simple one.
You blew it.
Sir Darkland. Is that yours too or no?
It is Stefan Darkland. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Then let's just get that out of the way. Stefan Darkland.
You blew it. And,
you blew it.
It's hard to ride a dragon. Maybe we wouldn't have given you the you blew it until you said I've done it before you did anything.
If you just were like, okay, I'll give it my best, and then you got torched, I'd feel really bad.
Yeah.
But the I've done it when you're 10 feet away makes zero sense to me. But, who knows? I probably would not have included that line if I was writing the show.
No, yeah, I wouldn't have either. Because he's never been, cocky in any other scenario.
It was a weird, tension setup thing where he's like, I've done it, to try to be like, ooh, now people think that he's done it. And then he gets torched. They're like, oh, no way. But he had done it.
But guys, he had done it.
All right, my Crown Their Ass.
Crown Their Ass fan favorite segment.
I hate to do this. I really do, but it's got to be Rhaenyra Targaryen.
You're crowning Rhaenyra.
Because the food. Because of the food. No other reason. The food, I said on the pod the food thing, so that's really cool.
You did.
Me and her have similar tastes. Because we also, my cereal won the poll, which is weird. But the food, but that's not the reason. So, Rhaenyra Targaryen.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown her ass.
She is who I thought she was.
Crown her. She deserves the crown, and you just said it. And
For this segment.
that is being recorded.
Before this, I had Eamon, because he had a really strong episode.
But on air recording, you said that Rhaenyra needs to be crowned. So.
Remind me at the beginning of this, who do we said edits this podcast?
I'm crowning this episode Alice Rivers. For two reasons. One, for being confirmed not a ghost. That's always a huge come up.
Hell yeah.
And then two, for being more productive than Damon has been over the whole season. So, Alice Rivers.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown her ass.
You're crowned.
For as plotting as this episode may have been to some, and quite a few people, I would say, have texted me. I've gotten 3 texts saying it was pretty slow. You know what's pretty fast and exciting? Deep Thrones pod.
Yes, okay.
That's what I was just doing a plug
Love
for
that.
ourselves.
No, I love that. I thought you were going to
I'm
circle
not doing
back
anything. Not doing anything.
to the Mysaria.
Don't even talk
Rhaenyra.
about it. That's you're talking about it, not me. I got to do my rewatch after this, so let's hurry up. Let's get through this. Oh, a strategy with Lord Mims.
Yes.
Mims, obviously, as we saw, Rhaenyra took advantage of the Greens, kind of dropping the ball at the Smallfolk. And since she sort of took advantage of that, let's look from the Greens' perspective. What would you have done to appease them so that Rhaenyra wouldn't have been able to do that?
Well, a preventative measure, I think, is just like letting the gates to King's Landing be open for comers and goers.
Yeah.
Once you close down the gates, the panic level already rises a little bit. And then you bring in the freaking dragon head parading that through the streets, and you go to DEFCON, 1, and it just spirals from there. So preventative measures: don't parade the dragon, leave the gates open. Now, if you're
bring up the dragon.
If the second, I guess, the other way that you could ask the question is, what would you do now, too, right? Like,
Yeah.
now that this shit's already popped off, and we'll see how Eamon handles it. But I think you just gotta restore confidence. You gotta tighten up the gold cloaks. You gotta maybe not send the remaining garrison off to war like he's doing with Kristen Cole.
So, with this blockade, do they have, no fleet in the bay?
They do not have a fleet.
Okay, I was going to say, how are
fleet-
those? They have not a boat shooting those down, so that makes sense now.
Yeah, the Crown's fleet was the Valerian fleet.
Oh, that's right. And
Yeah.
Corlys now has turned it into a blockade, so they're in Lannisport, which is the Lannisters' fleet, essentially, is on the other side of the continent, and it takes a long time to get there, and
even if the Greyjoys
they're even
reply to
further
this, yeah.
north than the Lannisters, and you
Northwest,
can't
yeah.
go up the north of the continent. You have to go south under Dorne, correct?
Yep, because it's frozen north.
Yeah, it's a very long trek.
So, to fix what's already been done, you gotta tighten up the security. Don't send off the remaining garrison that you have to go to war, and I don't know, maybe subsidize some sort of food so that the cost goes down. But yeah, I think now it's a little bit too late for you to be taking action.
Well, yeah, and the wound now has been cauterized too by the sword that cut that guy's hand off. They now see that they responded with violence instead of with understanding, which, obviously big mistake.
I mean, we saw that even in Game of Thrones too.
Joffrey and Tyrion says they're starving you, idiot, because of a war you started. Which is Greens, whether you like it or not, started the war essentially by usurping the throne. Although I guess Rhaenyra didn't agree with me, but I'm Team Greens, and I'm like, we started the war. But it's their own fault essentially.
And it is interesting to see, I don't think a Stefan Darkland or Laurent Marbrand or any of those original King's Guardmen would have done that. I think Aegon's cronies being in that situation.
They're playing up that those guys are very incompetent.
Yeah.
Because they even say is your graces. They're making them kind of like idiots.
Yeah.
So that brings us to our final segment, Trial by Combat.
Trial by Combat. Fan favorite.
So, fan favorite. And by fan favorite, we mean us. So right now in my writing, I'm trying to think, like, what's the next step I could take? And I thought about actually the writer's strike and the actor's strike of last year, and a big part of it was AI.
Okay.
And how they don't want AI to dominate the industry. And I thought, well, it's coming, so I'm going to use AI. So I used AI to help me with this week's new episode, or I guess a new show for Trial by Combat.
Okay.
And you know what else I'm super into right now?
What?
Portals. I love portals. Portals are in a lot of my writing. Like, there was a portal last week, or there was a portal in one night in New York.
Yes.
There's a lot of portals in the Boys series.
There's a lot of portals in the Boys
A lot
series.
big on portals. But remember Quantum Balls?
Yeah.
Portals. That was mostly portal driven. So I had to print this thing out because I had ChatGPT help me with this, and it's essentially me and Chris this is a movie about us, but we get sucked into a portal and we get taken to Westeros.
Whoa.
So this is a movie about two podcasters who met in high school, who have a podcast called Deep Thrones. What happens is Chris apparently, I bring a book. I come with like a haunted Westeros book, The Chronicles of Westeros, A Lost History, and it starts glowing while we're about to record, and it sucks us into Westeros. And we literally, in this, according to ChatGPT, we help Otto, and Otto has asked us where we're from, and we say we're from a distant land of Chicago. Otto narrowed his eyes. Chicago, never heard of it. Isn't that cool? Yeah, this whole thing is great, and we actually end up...
Why are we helping Otto?
I just put it into ChatGPT. You gotta ask the AI. You can't ask me. But essentially we help Otto a little bit. We actually do get in a battle with Rhaenyra's forces. While it's going on, the book out of nowhere shows up on the battlefield. And we're like, the book! And we dive on it, and it takes us back home. And it says, that week, Deep Thrones had its highest listenership ever, as Chris and John recounted their incredible, unbelievable journey to Westeros. While some listeners thought it was an elaborate story, those who knew them best could hear the truth in their voices. That's all we do is tell the truth. And as for the book, it remained a treasured, if enigmatic reminder of their time in the land of dragons and thrones, sent from my iPhone. So, pretty good story. I'm calling it House of the Deep Thrones.
I would be highly concerned about our efficacy on the battlefield.
That it brings that up, but it says because we are like from the future, essentially, we have like real world tactics. And I was like, does it mean we're like packing? Are we like? It says like let me see. It's realizing they were amidst of the dance of dragons, the civil war between Rhaenyra Targaryen and Halford. Chris and John exchanged nervous glances. Yeah, the turning point came when they learned an ambush, realized this was their chance. Armies clashed. Chris and John fought valiantly. Their modern sensibilities and quick thinking gave them an edge. And at the height of the battle, they saw the book.
Interesting.
Modern sensibilities.
Were there dragons at the battle?
It doesn't say.
Okay.
No, it doesn't say.
That would get us in some trouble, I think.
I think yeah.
But the modern sensibilities, though. So,
oh, yeah, we'd reason with it. He'd see the suit and he'd be like, no can do.
Oh, man. Yeah. No, that's awesome. The book is a portal. I'm in.
Yeah, I guess the book is like a haunted Westeros book that we found at an antique store. I didn't read the whole thing.
You know, there's something really grandiose about that story, and I think this is the point that you were trying to get across. And this is what we bring so much thought-provoking things into the pod. But you know, in a lot of ways, books are portals into other worlds, aren't they?
Ah, one day, Chris, you too could wear a suit on a podcast. That is quite. Gang, let me say something really quick before we wrap this up. I'm hearing a lot of the opinions on that episode. I think I tend to agree with them. I think you do too. Like it moved the story forward, and the show in a weird way, instead of like an episode to set up another episode, is almost using seasons to set up the events of another season. You get what I'm saying? And the payoff, I really feel like, is going to be huge. But sort of some of the stuff we've heard is like, but you have to entertain to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair.
But the payoff we know is going to be massive. That's the thing why I'm so excited. But if you don't know and you're just a fan watching, it's kind of like, well, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, I mean, agreed. If we look at the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones.
So we're
As he checks his pocket watch.
I was just checking.
If we look at the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones, I mean, you know, Ned Stark getting beheaded was a massive moment.
Yeah.
You know, the Renly Baratheon getting killed was kind of a big moment.
Oh yeah.
The dragons being born was a big moment, but I guess we did have the Battle of Blackwater Bay toward the end of
season 2.
Season 2, yeah. So okay, so those first couple seasons, there were a few key moments. I think here we had Rook's Rest, we had Viserys dying, you know, Vagar killing Luke could arguably be like a big moment. Blood and Cheese was a massive moment. People had mixed reviews on it, but it was a massive moment. I mean, yes, there's pacing issues, I think, that you could kind of draw attention to, but you know, when we're constantly looking for those big moments over and over again, like, I don't think that's a realistic expectation.
In a weird way, I feel like the end of Game of Thrones, and I'm not even talking about 8, I'm talking about like 6, where they turned it into kind of like season 6 doesn't really make sense. It's a Marvel movie. Like, Jon Snow should not have survived the Battle of the Bastards. They shouldn't have won. Sansa not telling them just so that epic reveal of the veil running in is not George R. R. Martin style writing. But people consider that the best season of Game of Thrones because it's a Marvel movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's exciting. And I love it. I love the Battle of the Bastards. But is it 1 through 4 Game of Thrones? No. If it's 1 through 4, Jon Snow's dead. And Ramsay wins that battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and I think a lot of people have forgotten the 1 through 4.
Yeah.
And are thinking of the 6. Mm-hmm. Now, 7 and 8's bad, but 6, man, that was lit. And that's where you fall into a trap of like...
But even
I felt
still,
like the storytelling in that episode was weirdly paced, but I liked it.
I think even still, though, that was season 6, right? Like, we're in early season... Well, midway through season 2 of a completely different story. So I do think the shadow of Game of Thrones...
It'll always
sets expectations higher than maybe what is fair for House of the Dragon. Mm-hmm. But be patient because this season's going to wrap up with a bang. Like it
definitely.
Is.
Yeah, we expect it. And also, like I said, the show in general is going to be a lot of bangers from here on out. Duncan Egg will be a different style, but we're excited about that too. But just all these prequels will have to answer to the shadow of Game of Thrones. But like, Duncan, they're all going to be so different. You know what I mean?
100p.
Like,
and it's going to be good. The further we move away from Game of Thrones, I think the better each story is going to get.
Yeah.
But yeah, tune in on Wednesday. We'll be back with Deeper Thrones. We're going to take a deeper look into the episode and catch up on some stuff that we might have missed. And please follow us. Leave ratings everywhere you get your podcast and YouTube. We really appreciate it. Love you guys. That's all I've got.
And my Syria, hit me up. The accent's not that bad.
Whips, check out the hand, switch, shooters on swoosh, hitters don't miss. Aria just added a ton of y'all to my list. Bitch, death wish, not to be messed with, tested quiz. They shoot